moving on to the SEC championship game, a rematch, a big-time game. We finally get another crack at the Dogs. 2.5-point favorites in this game in Atlanta. Texas versus Georgia. The over-under is set at 49. Gerald, I will let you have a crack at this one first. What are you expecting? What are your keys to the game? Stuff of that nature.
Yeah, I'm expecting another good one. I think, Georgia being the underdog is infuriating to me in this because there's one person that plays the respect card or the disrespect card, I guess, better than Kirby Smart, right? He is a pro at that. They're going to be up for the game. They're going to be up for it. But I think from my perspective, the things that plagued Texas in that first Georgia game, I don't anticipate it going the same way. Texas has been running the ball really well. They sucked at running the ball against Georgia the first time, right? The offensive line seems to have found its rhythm, even with Kelvin Banks' status being a little uncertain for that game, the offensive line is playing as good, if not better, than it has all year. And so the communication issues are starting to solve themselves. The running backs, Quatravian Wisner finding his footing. So I think the game for me is once again going to be lost. Won and lost at the line of scrimmage. That's where it was lost, earlier this year in Austin. I think it's going to be won or lost there again. And Texas' ability to run the ball when they need to, when they want to. Quinn Ewers taking care of the ball. Those are the keys to the game. It's overly simple, but football's a simple game. Don't turn the ball over. Win at the point of attack. And I think Texas has a shot to win this one.
Yeah, 100%. Trevor Gooseby, we'll see if he is the left tackle. What's crazy about that, he was the highest rated offensive lineman according to Pro Football Focus for Texas. He was the 11th highest rated offensive lineman in all of college football. So to come in and do that versus Nick Scourton, who was the main assignment, listen, I've always thought Nick Scourton was a bit overrated, but listen, NFL scouts love him, and he's going to be a first-round pick. So to do that in your first start, props to him. He was prepared. He was well-rehearsed, and he did a fantastic job in that football game. And also credit to Kyle Flood. This offensive line was in shambles when he got here, and we have 8 guys that I basically trust to play offensive line now. So that's really impressive to do in the short time he's been here. Listen, it's still going to be a big deal if Kelvin Banks can't play in this game because this is a different monster. You're going to get a lot of Mykel Williams. You're going to get a lot of Jalen Walker. And believe me, they are going to throw blitzes at Trevor Gooseby because they know he is not seasoned like Kelvin Banks. He has not seen the same things. So it's going to be very interesting how that goes. I think Kelvin Banks will end up playing. Sark kind of said he's doing decently well. He's doing probably just as good as Quinn Ewers was last week. So that tells me he's going to play. What's going to be interesting, and I think they're going to treat this a lot like an NFL game where they realize this guy really doesn't need a lot of practice or prep. I think he'll try to give it a go Thursday to see if someone can push on him and his ankle doesn't give out. If that's good to go, I think he'll play in this game. So watch out for that in this game. In this game, like I said, Quinn Ewers has to be able to step up, has to be able to make plays with his legs. He did it versus A&M. He went for a couple pretty decently long runs, or at least escaped the pocket and allowed his receivers to get open. And that's another thing too. When I went back and rewatched that Georgia game after the Georgia game, didn't watch this time because I don't want to put myself through that again. There wasn't much separation between the wide receivers of Texas and the Georgia DBs. We really didn't create that much separation, so I think Sark has to do a better job in this game of scheming his guys open a little bit more. Yeah. I'd like to see them take advantage of Georgia's aggressiveness early on, not with wide receiver screens because they know that. They were ready for that the last time. Yeah. I'd like to see him try some misdirection and also some running back screens. That's not something he does as much as I think he should do sometimes. And I'd also like to see play action early on to try to hit some deep balls to soften them up because they were playing on their tippy toes all last game. They were ready to come downhill and smack the whole night. We never made them think at all about, this could be happening, this could be happening. They knew exactly what was coming, and they just destroyed everything in the first half. So I think Sark's going to learn from that. Obviously, he's way too good of a play caller, knows way too much about football to just run out that same game plan. So I think that's going to be interesting. And then, I agree. I think this has to be, at some point, a heavy dose of Trey Wisner in that offensive line to lean on him, get him tired. And I think they're going to be able to do that this time. Do I think it's going to be like Kentucky or Texas A&M where we're able to run for 156 yards with Trey Wisner and 180-something yards with Trey Wisner? No. But can Trey Wiseman run for 90 to 100 yards in this game?
Yeah.
I think he can, and I think that's good enough in this game. And then when we do get those deep balls, like the one to Matthew Golden, can you hit one, Quinn? I just need one. Can you hit one? And then also be very good in the intermediate game as well. We saw that beautiful pass to Ryan Wingo on the route that basically just running to the sideline. That's all that route was. Beat your guy to the sideline.
Yep.
Quinn delivered it out there to him. It was a beautiful pass. Those type of routes, I think you can
Yep.
get open, especially with, I think a guy that in this game is going to make a couple plays is Amari Niblack. He's been getting a little bit more run, and I think he's just the type of athlete in this game to be able to exploit Georgia's safeties and linebackers, even though they are very athletic in the passing game. So I think that's a name to look out for. It's going to be interesting how we use Arch Manning in this game. I think that's another thing to look out for. I don't know if he's just a red zone threat. I don't know if we're going to use him in between the 20s or outside the 20s at all. It's going to be very interesting how we use him.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be opportunities. I think Sark is probably going to pull some tricks out of his bag and pull some new things in and out. We have to talk about the Texas defense too, and what they did or were unable to do against Georgia the last time. That was, Trevor Etienne's big game of the year, or kind of his big coming out party. The Texas defense will likely not want to have that happen again, and frankly, they take a lot of pride in it. So I wouldn't be shocked if that is a focus this week. There's going to be a lot of chess going back and forth. I think Mike Bobo is going to have some new wrinkles. I think Pete Kwiatkowski is going to have a lot of wrinkles as well. I really think part of what went wrong for Texas is Georgia did a lot of stuff in that game that we hadn't seen before, that the offense hadn't seen before. A lot of the stemming, a lot of the looks, a lot of the alignments, a lot of the late blitzes. There's obviously going to still be some of that in the bag, but how much of that is really left for them to be able to pull out? So I don't know. I can't answer that question. The answer is probably still quite a bit, but I think there is going to be less confusion. Texas is going to be honestly prepared for stuff they're unprepared for as much as you can be, right? Look out. And it all comes down to communication, right? It all comes down to the quarterback trying to communicate as well as he can, the offensive line maintaining communication as well. I really hope that the NCAA does something about the trend of stemming right before the snap and kind of lump some of it in with the disconcerting signals calls, because obviously you can't limit the defense from moving and changing, but also the clearly coordinated stem to try to get the offensive line to jump is a little sketch in my opinion, and Georgia has employed that quite a bit. So that's something else to be prepared for. But ultimately, Texas has and can win this game, right? They've won games like this in the past. They went into Alabama last year and smacked Alabama. They've won this type of game before, and they have the horses in the barn to do it. But will they show up? Will the minds be right? Will the bodies be right? And ultimately, will they be able to live up to the standard that they've set in other weeks?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it will be interesting if the NCAA ever does anything about that. A&M did that a whole bunch last week. We actually did it a couple times as well. That was really the first time all year that we kind of did it. So I think Sark's like, you know what? Everyone else is doing it. We're going to do it too.
Yeah.
And I agree. Trevor Etienne really didn't have a lot of yards, but he had a lot of impactful yards. Like when they needed 3 to 4 yards, he got the 3 to 4 yards. And that was really the only game all year where Texas didn't do a good enough job of corralling someone when they needed to do that. Also, can we get more pressure? We only had 1 sack in the first game. I need 3 to 4 this game. And I do think the front four has gotten better in general after that game. Like the sack numbers have just exploded. We had 6 versus Arkansas, 6 versus Kentucky. We had like 3 or 4 versus A&M. So the numbers have definitely gotten better since that game. Can you give me 3 or 4 versus this offensive line? And then also Carson Beck, kind of like Quinn Ewers, will hit you with the run here or there. You got to limit that as well. If you can, make him beat you with your arm. And when he throws you a ball, because he will throw you a ball, catch the ball. Yeah, he will throw you at least one. Catch the football. And it'd be nice. We haven't had a pick six in a very long time. Go get me a pick six. That'd be really nice in this game. But go ahead.
Texas has been opportunistic, right? This year, intercepting the ball. So let's turn that into points. I think that's the other thing. It's like, how do you turn it into points? You mentioned a pick six. Can the offense capitalize on the quick change, keep the defense, keep the opponent's defense from getting comfortable? That's going to be a difference in this game if they can do it.
100%. So, Gerald, let's get the predictions. What do you have for the prediction on this game?
Man, my head and my heart are like on different paths right now, but I ultimately think like a field goal is probably the right difference for this game. because we're here, I'm going to say, I'm going to bet on my boys. I think Texas probably comes out with this one. I will say 31-28.
Okay, 31-28. I'm going to go 26-20. So I take the under here, but I would take Texas to cover. I just think they like that game, that whole first half was the worst offensive first half Sark has ever had. Like
Yep.
I've never seen them have that bad of a half. I just don't expect them to do that again. Like if they just have an average half in that game's probably only like 10-0 at halftime. So just don't completely, down your leg in this game.
Yeah.
Allow your defense to not play catch up basically the whole game, offense as well, and I think you'll be fine. And like I said, try to establish the run early. Also, try to push the ball downfield early just to soften them up. And then if you want to go east to west, you'll be fine. And I think that's what he's going to do in this game. I don't think we're going to start out with screens because that ain't going to work for this team. They will blow those up like they did in the first game, and it could get ugly. But it would shock me if he went with anywhere near the game plan that he went with the first time. So I think they'll be able to score some points versus this defense because this defense has struggled. They struggled through the air. They've struggled on the ground. We saw that versus Georgia Tech and Haynes King, especially on the ground. I mean, they gave up over 200 yards rushing to UMass.
Yeah.
So we have to be able to run the ball in this game.
I mean, and that's Texas didn't do it last time, and the offense got predictable. Texas has to do it this time to keep them off the bounce. And I've always called back to Sark's conversation about balance. It's not about numbers. It's not about carries. It's not about touches. But when you need to run the ball, can you run the ball? Texas was unable to do that the first game against Georgia. Will they be able to buck that trend in Atlanta?
100%. So we both have Texas winning, both of us in a pretty close game. We'll see if that's enough to get the number 1 seed. At worst, you're the number 2 seed. As a Texas fan, root for Penn State. That's if we win the game. Root for Penn State because I would like the number 1 seed. I think that makes a big difference. I don't want to face, like at this point, I think we probably would end up facing Georgia again. And then the second round, I don't mind facing them a third time, honestly, but I don't want to face them basically back-to-back, especially when they've had – I think the bye actually kind of hurts you a little bit because you're been sitting for 3 weeks. So I don't want to face them once they get like honestly kind of a tune-up game versus what's probably going to be Indiana. Like they'll beat the out of Indiana. So it's going to be very interesting. I'm excited to watch it. Texas in the all-white uniforms, just like last year in the Big 12 championship game. So it's going to be a lot of fun down in Atlanta.
Yeah, look good, feel good, play good, right? They got the choice to be the home team and pick the uniforms. Icy White's always the right choice.
It's going to be interesting how many Texas fans show up. It'll be very interesting.
Yeah.